Okay, on my behalf and on our club's behalf, I welcome you to the playoff with Perkins and Conrad event. Welcome. And on my left, may I introduce you from Austin, Texas, representing Team Discmania, Nate Perkins. Let's go. And on my right, also from United States, Blacksburg, Virginia.
Yeah.
And representing Team Innova, he's the star team member, James Conrad. I don't know why I'm standing here, so I'll move there.
Thank you. Yeah, James is also the 5th ranked player in the world right now, so it's really awesome to have him at my side at these events. Yeah, James has a very unique style in disc golf. I'm sure you guys have all seen on YouTube, but it's really cool to have him here and having him go and attempt to break down his very unique form.
Yeah.
But yeah, James is going to start us off with a little bit of the mental game. I know he was talking to you guys a little bit about it, but the mental aspect of the game is later, as you develop form and as you develop the proper technique and everything, then the mental aspect becomes the single most important thing of disc golf. So James is going to break that down a little bit, how he approaches his run up and how he approaches the basket and the putting green.
Yeah, absolutely. The mental game is paramount. And before I really dive into that, I want to add that if any of y'all at any point today have any questions at all, like, please ask. It helps us a lot to know what y'all want to know. You know, it's kind of hard to get up here and just talk for an hour and not really know if what we're saying is helping or if it's what y'all are hoping to hear.
We maybe had one question, and this is our 5th clinic, and we've had one question from
none. So if you're curious about anything,
one question,
please ask away.
Welcome to Finland.
Yeah.
It definitely makes it easier for us, and it helps us know that we're, you know, talking about things that y'all are hoping to hear. We want it to be tailored for you guys. Like, it's not just like a little package that we like to give to every person. You know, we want to help each person if we can.
Yes, and that even means that if you want to come up here and you want me to move your elbow and move your hips and try and get you in the right position, that's totally okay. That's what you paid for today. Please don't be afraid to come up here and let us dissect your form, because then that gives us talking points to talk about why we want it to be here. And yeah, please don't be afraid to ask.
But yeah, I'll start with a little bit of the mental game. One of the big things I like to talk about is like a pre-shot routine, you know, to get your focus where it has to be, to get ready for each shot, you know. So I'm going to make a little fake tee pad here, and if I'm going this way, you know, during my practice rounds, one of the things I really get dialed in is my footwork. My throw relies very heavily on getting my legs. I'm actually like attacking the tee pad by running into it, you know, by getting my momentum, my weight going forward. And so it's important to be confident with where I'm going to step. You know, I like about 5 meters is about perfect for me for a power shot, and that's about 5 steps. So for me, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I already know in my head ahead of time where exactly those steps are going to be, like where my first one is, at what point do I have to step onto the tee pad, you know, it's very important to me to know all those things, or else if I get to a hole and I'm not really sure how I'm going to run up, maybe I have to like climb up something and then I'm up on the tee pad, not sure where my feet are, not comfortable, you know, that's taken away from my focus level. I'm forgetting about the shot I'm trying to throw, and I'm worried about this, or I'm worried about something that's in my way, or a little bit of gravel that I'm going to slip on. And so it's really important to, you know, be comfortable on the tee pad. Anytime,
yeah, that pre-shot routine that he's talking about, he doesn't do it to look fancy.
No, it's
right.
Yeah, sometimes I feel a little self-conscious, you know, especially in a casual round. If I take my 20 or 30 seconds, it's easy to like feel a little bit out of place during that time. But that's your time, you know. When it's your shot, it's all yours. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It doesn't matter if someone over here is like, oh, why does he do a fake swing every time? You know, what's all that? And even if they think low of that, it's okay. I mean, who cares what they think? You know, that's your time. It's your shot. It's your right to take your time and to be happy with how you feel.
Yeah, we're talking about 30 seconds, right? That's how much time we have in disc golf for our shots. 30 seconds is not a lot of time at all. And we can compare our sport to traditional golf, or ball golf as we like to call it. as disc golfers, but they can take all the time in the world on their shot, right? And the pro that they're playing alongside them is not judging them in any way. I understand that disc golf is like we play in groups of 4 or 5 or maybe more, and you have all these people around you, and it's a very intimate situation in a competition because you have 3 other people who are ready to take their turn. But you are a lot of the time, and you need to own that time, and what you do with that time before you throw is very important, because you can practice all you want, you can train all you want, but in the end, the moment before you release that disc is the most important moment. It's a very brief moment in time, and you need to be very comfortable, and you need to own that space. That space needs to be yours and yours alone. And the things that you do before, like the run up that James is talking about, the 5 steps, he's lining in his footwork, and that's what helps him be comfortable. He's taking deep breaths, he lines up his footwork, and then when he gets back here, he's taking a nice deep breath so that he can relax his heart rate a little bit, clear everything away from his mind, and he's definitely not worried about what he looks like or what other people perceive him as, right? He's only thinking about the shot, the line ahead of him, where his feet need to go to execute it to the best of his ability in that moment.
Yeah, exactly, and that doesn't only apply on the tee shot. You know, I a lot of times like to spin probably a good bit of my 30 seconds on the putting green, and some of that, you know, I have a pretty standard routine, like something that I do very similar almost every time. You know, I like to take my time, line it up a couple times, and then, you know, even if it takes 15 or 20 seconds just to get comfortable or to get my heart rate a little bit under control, you know, that's perfect. It's something that I can fall back on every time. So maybe I was not happy with my shot, and I get up and I'm like feeling angry. I like to, you know, take 15, 20 seconds to take a few deep breaths, to just really let those stresses, let those things that are distracting me from my focus, from my putt, give them time to melt away. Get comfortable, you know, be happy with where you are, and, you know, take your time, and then when you're ready, you can dial in exactly where you're aiming and let your putt go, and hopefully it'll be good. And that can happen too on, say I have an obstructed lie, like y'all can stay here, but maybe my lie is right here and I'm putting up here, so I'm like, oh dang, can't putt like this, you know, check this way, maybe, you know, check this way. Okay, yeah, so it's good to, you know, take your time and test out your different options on each lie and wait until you feel comfortable. Like maybe there's a little bush here, so it would obstruct my swing. That's something that's going to be distracting you from aiming in your putt. So maybe you can step a little farther just so that bush isn't in the way, and get comfortable, then take your time, take a few breaths, and it'll help a lot. It really helps to, you know, be comfortable with your lie, be comfortable with where you are, with how your swing feels, and all that just goes a huge way to making it easier to execute the shot when it happens. It's about forgetting about the things that are making you upset or even too excited. You know, maybe you got a turkey, like 3 birdies in a row, and you're like kind of a little excited, like, oh, so many birdies, and you get like nervous because of that. You're like, 4 in a row would be even better, but you got to forget about those things.
Yeah, it's a very good point. A very good point. Who thinks that way? Who thinks about what their putt is for? Everybody. Even the best of us, they're like, Macbeth is like, this is for 18 on 18, right? You know he was thinking that. He had to have been, right?
He absolutely knows it, and he lets that drive him. You know, leading up to the shot, he's excited about it and maybe a little nervous about it, but then still, once he gets into his stance and does his little routine, you know, I guarantee he just lets that thing melt away, and he focuses 100% on the basket, on his putt, on his swing, and just on feeling good, you know, and then boom, makes it. And he's one of the best at it, and
yeah,
Ricky is one of the best at it too.
High pressure situations, and that's why. Sorry, James. That's okay. Why they have those routines. That's why Ricky's doing that the whole time. You know, where he's tapping the putters and he's going like that. That's not to look fancy. That's not for you guys. That's not for the fans. That's completely for him.
For his mental state.
For his mental state, to get back in it. That has nothing to do with physically what's going on. He's not stretching. Right? He's already loose, he's already warm. That's only to let all those thoughts drift away, because we are creatures of habit. The power of habit is very powerful. You guys are very on-time culture, right? You're not late. I know it because They would not accept us to be late. We met with them at the bar. We were 5 minutes late and he had already left. And he was like, no, I was there on time. And he explained to us how important it is to be on time. You are people of habit here. And as we are across the globe, the power of habit is invaluable. And that's what it all comes down to for those 30 seconds, is just to build that habitual movements up so that when you are there, that it's all muscle memory, right?
Anyone have any questions about what I was talking about? Yes.
Do you still do the same routine on the practice rounds also, or only on the competitions?
That's a great question.
I do a little less on my practice rounds. My practice, yeah, it for me it depends on the kind of practice round. If I'm playing a brand new course and learning the course, not so much worried about my routine. I'm not worried about score even at that point. You know, I'm worried about seeing the course and trying some different kinds of shots on different holes. And so in those, I tend to I don't usually do my practice swing. I usually just, you know, get up and throw. But if I'm playing for score, if I'm playing a cash round for Nate, if we were betting $50 on a practice round, then yeah.
I'm up, by the way.
Yeah, probably is, yeah.
But then he beats me in the tournament, so.
Maybe I need to do a better practice routine, or a better routine than we play.
Yeah.
But yeah, good question.
That's a really good question, because a lot of the times when we go to practice a course, we're not necessarily worried about where the discs are going, right? Because we trust in our skills when the time comes. What we're worried about is what our game plan is, okay? Disc golfers are notoriously superstitious, right? Where they think that in practice that you have to birdie the hole to be able to birdie it again, right? Well, if James goes and throws this hole and throws his putters and he keeps on hitting the same tree early in his shot, he's not gonna carry that into the competition. All he's trying to do is visualize the line and get there and see what the hole's like. Say, okay, I know I'm throwing my AVR here. He doesn't have to birdie that hole necessarily in the practice round for when it comes game time to be able to execute the shot, right? We're just trying to see what the course is, where our landing zones are.
I'm trying to learn the tee pads too in my practice rounds.
Where James is going to run from.
You know, where I'm going to step, those things. And yeah, but usually I don't even keep score in most of my practice rounds. It's not something that bothers me too much, because maybe I shot 12 down in a practice round, and then in the tournament I'm like trying to match that. I'm like, okay, I birdied this hole the other day, I need to birdie it again to get that score, and those aren't healthy thoughts. You know, it's good to know that you can birdie the hole, but it's not good to try to measure up to a previous round. It should be, each shot should be its own shot, not based on what you shot before or how you birdied it before or anything like that. You should pick the best shot you can for that hole and try to execute that.
No, that's a really great point. That is another thing that I see very common in a lot of disc golfers, is that, so say that you approach a hole and normally you throw the mid-range, right? You're comfortable with the mid-range, but in practice you threw all your mid-ranges, you did not birdie, so then you throw your FD and you got the birdie. So when you approach it in the game time, you're gonna have that thought, oh, well, I should maybe throw the mid because it's the higher percentage play, but I got the birdie with the FD. Again, not a very healthy thought, because you wanna be able to rely on your confidence in what the highest percent shot is, and not the superstition that you got the birdie the day before with the FD, right?
Any other questions about that kind of stuff? Yes.
Maybe about the scores. What if the score matters a lot? Like, it's up to your tournament win. Do you still not think about the score when you plan the shot?
You can take it.
Okay, yeah. I think it's unique to different people. You know, some people work better knowing the score, and some people it's easier if they forget about it and only think about the shot. I'm in the first group. In a competitive round, like on the final round in a tournament, even without UDisc, you know, I know what I'm at always. I always know my own score in tournament round, and I usually know if me and Nate were tied or close to tied and battling for the win, I absolutely know what he's at too. You know, I just can't help but keep track of it, and maybe walking down the fairway in between my shots, it's something I'm thinking about, like, okay, I have a good chance at getting a stroke on this hole or next hole, or this hole might be tough because Nate has a really good forehand and I don't. Some of those thoughts creep in, but then once I enter my stance, once I start entering my routine, you know, that's when I let those things melt away and try to have single track minds, try to only think about the shot at hand. Like, it's good to know where you're at and know what's on the line, but you can't let it override your focus. You can't let it override your execution of your shots.
Yeah, and sometimes it's important to know what the score is because it might change your game plan, right? Like if you are up quite a few strokes and you're going into hole 17, USDGC, you guys know that hole?
Island.
Raise your hand if you've seen that hole. Hole 17, the Dream Crusher. Okay, why didn't Johnny McRae lay up? You guys remember that?
Yes.
He had like 4 strokes. I have no idea why he wouldn't just lay up. He was very stubborn and prideful, and that cost him the tournament, right? Any smart player would have just laid up and taken the major win. And sometimes you have to understand what the score is, maybe coming into the last few holes. If you have like an island hole like that and you need to play it differently to get maybe a birdie or maybe a par or even a single bogey to secure the win. Other than that though, I feel like understanding the scores can only, and putting that pressure on yourself can only hurt. Yeah.
Could you guys open your thought process a little bit? For example, if you're in a really stressful putt or drive and you're stepping up to that shot, like what is going through your minds and how do you melt away that the stress that's in there?
It's a tough question.
It's a bit of a personal question. But what's your guys' thought
That's
process
okay.
in that?
Yeah, my personal thought process is I try and go and take it back to just my physical body, and I try and visualize in both the first person and the third person as well. I try and visualize exactly what my body is going to look like in the near future, what my shot needs to be, where my body needs to be on the tee pad. Like if I have a very stressful island hole or something, I'm trying to visualize where my steps are, where exactly I'm gonna step, but I'm also gonna take a step back mentally and try and look at my body and see what my body looks like when I go to throw that safe forehand onto the pad. And I try and only think about the physical space around me. And again, it is a personal question because everyone has different methods for how they push thoughts out of their head, but I like to try and put actual images in my mind of like what the dirt looks like and what the sun feels like on me and like what the wind feels like coming against me, and then once I'm actually there, I've already completed it. I've already done it in my head. There's a really good book out there. It's called Mind Gym. If you guys want to write that down or something, it's a brief read, but it has helped a lot of athletes do exactly what you're talking about, and it talks all about visualization, constantly visualizing. That's a lot of what I do just all the time, is I'm just visualizing my success. I've been visualizing myself winning the European Open all year long. I know I've never seen the course, but I know what I'm throwing on every hole. I already know that I can birdie hole 17 with the sidearm, and I've visualized what disc I'm gonna throw all the way through because I watched Greg Barsby do it. I know I can do it, and I've been visualizing that every drive from Beaver State to Santa Cruz to San Francisco. I'm thinking about the first major I'm gonna play, and I'm thinking about hole 1 at the Beast and how I'm gonna park my MD4. And I really mean that. I visualize it all the time. And so when you finally get to those moments, it's much easier to just put yourself through it.
Could you repeat the question? Are you asking more about like what the stress is?
Yeah,
or?
What's your thought process on it? Like, how do you melt away the stress? Like, for example, you have this putt for the win, or
right.
do that 50 down or something.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get it away? Like, it's not like stressing yet, then you're not twitching and then screwed up.
It's one of the hardest things to do for me. It's comes from putting yourself in that position. You know, the first time that you're in position to maybe win, it's going to be impossible to let it melt away. You know, so it's for me, the number one biggest thing I rely on is my breath. Like, I've practiced yoga a fair amount, and it teaches you how powerful your breath is. You know, you can really control a lot of your body with the way that you breathe and how slow, and whether you're breathing. Like, I like to do probably 3, 4, or 5 second in and about half that time out. So like slow in and then a good out, and just doing that for 10 seconds can really like kind of steady your hand, and it lets your heart rate get a little bit down, and that's the biggest thing I can do to help. And then, but yeah, even then, you're perfect at breathing and everything. It's different when you're in front of hundreds or even thousands of people watching you, and knowing that what's at stake, whether you're going to win or lose just based on one putt. But you just got to have confidence in your body, know that you've made that putt 100, a million times maybe for me, and yeah, be happy with where you are, be proud of yourself, and be excited for the chance to win. Not scared of the thought of losing, but more excited at the chance to win. I think helps me. Any other questions on that? We can dive into form here in a little bit, or what are you all hoping to hear more about?
I was thinking how you cut in the process of your footwork. Like you said you have 5 steps on it, and how did you like it on the first? Did you build it up like from 3 steps and add up one, or did you always have it?
Not always. But I've been playing since I was a young kid, so my body and my throw has kind of developed with my age, and I'd say my throw has been pretty similar since I was maybe 16 or 17 years old. Going through puberty, getting tall and lanky, and like learning how my body worked. I spent a lot of time in soccer fields, just throwing. I wanted to throw as far as I could. I wanted to learn how to just smash. And for me, we didn't have much YouTube, like disc golf YouTube back then, 12, 13 years ago. And I didn't really know a whole lot of pros. My dad played, so he showed me some things, but just from trial and error, I found that the faster I went into the tee pad, the faster I could throw the disc. And my body, each body's unique. Like, I don't have the most flexibility. I don't necessarily have the most fast twitch muscles. Like, I can't like hit a baseball as hard as a lot of other people can, or even a golf ball. I can't like explode on that small scale. Like, I was a long distance runner, not a track sprinter in high school, so a little bit more of the long twitch. And I just found that if I'm taking really long steps, that gives me, I can pull the disc from starting here all the way to here, like a 2, 3, 4, maybe even close to 4 meter pull on the disc, and that just allows me to get more power. And I found that 4 steps is medium power, like 5 maybe with a couple little steps beforehand is how I can really get my whole body engaged, really drive with my legs, really explode all the way through my shot if I have that much room. But that's pretty unique to my body. I don't recommend it to a lot of other people, but it can be worth at least trying.
Yeah, for sure. So that can bring us right into what I think is the most valuable thing that we are bringing today. And it's talking about the drive, right? It's the most important throw in disc golf. It's what makes disc golf unique as far as like turning your body away from stuff. There's not very many sports like that, right? There are some fundamentals about disc golf that you guys all already understand, right? Has everyone seen the YouTube videos talking about pulling through? Does everyone know what James is talking about when he's reaching back and his disc is way back there? Right, that's a very important fundamental of the game. What he was referencing is how far the disc is back here versus where he's going to release it. Right, the longer that distance is, the more leverage you're going to have, and the harder you're going to be able to throw it. The more spin you're going to be able to have. Right, the more time you have to accelerate it. Everyone understands that fundamental of disc golf, but there's another fundamental of disc golf that a lot of people have not talked about, and it's very important. And it's very important for you to understand this so you're able to visualize it, because disc golf is actually not a pulling motion. Okay, disc golf in its truest form, for the best players, is actually a pushing motion, okay? And what we mean by that is that your legs are actually how you get power in disc golf. That is how you're going to have better timing and transfer more weight into your throw. Because you guys have all heard the word timing before, right? You say, why does Eagle throw far? Oh, because his timing's so good. It's like, I don't know what the hell that means, right? What is the timing, okay? The timing is how close your weight is to when that disc comes through, okay? It is weight transfer followed by the disc, which is in your arm, which is the whip, right? So the closer that you can get those things to each other, that's what we mean by timing, okay? And what I mean, disc golf being a pushing motion, is that everything is coming from the ground up, and so no one is going to set a distance world record by just being able to pull harder than anyone else in the world, okay? The way that those guys set distance world records, the reason that David Wiggins throws so far and Simon and Eagle and all those guys throw so far is because of their legs and the way that they maneuver their legs into their throw so that their hips are locked, and that when they transfer their weight, the weight is going from your back leg into your right leg as you power through your throw, and then everything up here is just part of the whip, and it's the second part of the throw. Okay, so you guys take that information and visualize that as disc golf being a pushing motion forward rather than just a pulling motion, and I'm trying to pull the disc and make the disc go faster that way. We had a question over here?
Yeah, I was asking about the whip.
Yeah.
I was coming up to that. I like when you said you pull back your arm.
Yeah.
I watched this video that who from Innova, the old guy. I
Yeah.
don't remember his name. He was talking. Yeah. He was talking about how, for example, Seppo Paju, he
Yeah.
doesn't put his arm very long back. He
That's
has
right.
like whip, his arm is like this.
Yes.
When he throws, and he throws long.
It's a very good point, and
Yeah.
Seppo is someone that I reference very often, especially for this concept that we're talking about today, because you guys know what Seppo does in his dance. I like to call it a dance that is unique. Anyone? He's got the little hop. Okay, if you watch the Central Coast from Portland Open, any of you guys watch that?
Yeah, I know what.
Yeah, I got to commentate on that, and those guys crushed it. And I was on the card. I didn't do so as well as those guys, but they crushed it. And we talked about, me and Ian talked about Seppo's hop, okay? Seppo hops, right? The reason that Seppo hops is, and this is Seppo's words, that the reason that he throws so far is because of his little hop. The reason that Seppo hops is because that forces him to get all his weight right here, okay? If all his weight is right here, and then when Seppo steps right there, and that's important because that our hips are locked, okay? If I am going to throw a right hand backhand drive, and I go over here, and I step this way, what's wrong with that? My hips are open. I'm trying to throw that way. My weight is going this way, and my arm is going that way. So if you were to stand here with me like this, and you were gonna try and throw, you could feel your weight going back this way, and then eventually it's all arm. If I step even closer straight, that helps me out a little bit because I'm balanced and I can transfer my weight from back to forward. But if you step even more this way, that's what's gonna really create that load, okay? The load is very important key term in this concept because we are loading our weight into our back leg and into our hips, pushing from the ground up, okay? We're gonna watch James throw, excuse me. We're gonna watch James throw a couple shots, and I want you to pay attention to his footwork and where exactly he's stepping in relation to his body. Watch how his hips are closed, and watch when he goes to throw, how he shifts his weight from his back leg into his front leg, while everything is still closed, okay? When he shifts, he is not opening up like this, right? Everything is shifting closed. You watch his legs, his knees kind of coil in like that. That's the very moment where the weight transfer happens. I also want you to pay attention to how everything seems at the last moment, that it is all happening in one moment. The moment that he is far back in his throw is the same moment that his front leg is touching the ground, and it's also the same moment that he transfers the weight and it whips through. Those moments are not separate. The closer that you can get those moments in sequence, that's what we call efficient timing, right? So you guys pay attention to a few of those things.
And it, like I was saying, how long my run up tends to be. You know, it's not always if I'm only trying to throw 70 meters or something. I'll do short steps and short run up, but the key elements are still there. You know, I'm still getting all my weight from the back. It's all loaded back here with closed hips. And then in one motion, the weight comes forward, immediately followed by the arm, by the swing. And that's why, you know, I can throw maybe an 80-meter shot when it doesn't look like I threw hard at all. You know, it's just efficient use of my weight, efficient use of my timing. It's being able to connect those dots and get everything lined up just right is how guys, some of us make it almost look effortless. You know, it looks like we just swing and it just goes, and it's just getting all those mechanics, you know, so dialed in, getting the timing just right. I'll start with a couple slow ones and then I'll maybe try to rip a couple down, but
And I know that everyone is very concerned about where the disc goes, how far he throws it.
Too much, yeah.
But he's just throwing into the trees, right? And we don't care where it goes. We want to pay attention to his legs, his footwork, where he's reaching back to. Notice how he has that like kind of pause, right? The pause, he's going slow. This is a very slow throw for James. He's not attacking this very hard, but notice that pause and notice where his weight is back here, and it's not coming forward until he's ready to explode, right? A lot of people, they like to lean their weight up here, and then they're here, and then they're throwing. Well, my weight has already started to come forward. The longer that you have that weight back, the more coiled you are, and the more load you're gonna have to put into the drive. Very common theme for me to move my shit out of his way. Every cash round, it's like,
I'm like, all right, move Nate's bag, now I can throw. Yeah, move Nate. I think he doesn't try to work me, try to get in my head.
I do. Yeah. Woo! Money. All right, we got eyes on that one.
Sort of, yeah.
So one of the big reasons why James can throw so far is his run out, right?
Maybe 5 meters or something. You know, it was 5 steps, like I was saying. It's about, for me, about a meter a step, maybe even a little more on the last couple. Like, so yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, right about here is probably where I'm starting the disc. You know, how far is that? Like 1, 2. Yeah, probably a 3 meter pull on the disc. You know, like I said, I don't have the fastest twitch muscles. I don't quite have the explosive power to like to punch someone as hard as, you know, other people might, and I make up for it with the, you know, being able to pull, using my length to my advantage. You know, using what I have to work with. Trying to maximize that.
He's got his weight, but he also has the momentum moving forward, right? But none of that would matter. None of this would matter if you can run as fast as you can and try and throw. It would not matter if James tried to step here and throw there, right? Because our weight is all off balance.
Yeah,
James still, he's still, the only way to maximize his body weight, his force driving forward, and his momentum, the only way to maximize that is to at one point have your hips locked. Have your hips locked and generate moving from here to here before things are opening up. Even if he steps here and his weight is all forward, and then if his weight is not in front of the disc, none of his run up would matter, okay? His weight has to be right in front of it. The disc cannot lead, else he's just losing all the momentum that he's building up. Yeah.
Another point we haven't really focused on in my throw that's pretty specific or unique is, you know, I have an exaggerated follow through, and that's because I have so much momentum coming in. It has to obviously go somewhere. It can't just freeze right here. And whether you attack the T-pad fast like I like to or not, it's really important to focus on not just stopping your throw here. Like, some people can make it work with somewhat of a small follow through. Like Ricky's a pretty good example. He doesn't have really exaggerated, but even his, you know, it's still a complete motion. It's all the way, and you don't try to stop throwing here. You know, you don't stop throwing until you're all the way through your throw. I like to completely open my shoulders, my hips this direction, so I'm going from here all the way around to here. You know, not just to forward, but all the way through the throw. Like your throw doesn't stop here, it stops sometimes a step forward and completely getting all the way around on the disc. You know, it helps it be in one complete motion, not different things. Like it's not a throw and then a follow through. You know, it's all one big motion.
So would you say, like, when trying to show better peaks of form practicing, the number one thing is to concentrate on your legs, your footwork?
Yes,
I think so.
I absolutely, it's the number one thing, and yes, because your legs are way more powerful than your arms, right? You use your legs every day, you walk every day, and the timing is only dependent on your weight, right? And you can't move your weight with your upper body. You can only transfer your weight with your lower body, right? That's where your weight is centered. Definitely the most important thing.
What's your opinion, both of your opinions on standstill shots? Do you use them? I don't remember if
I use them
see them.
very rarely.
Only if you have to, really.
Only if I have to. If I'm jump putting, obviously, but if I'm throwing, even if it's only 30, 40 meters, I still like to do a little three-step. Like if I was just going right down here to that tree and this was my lie, you know, I would still like to at least do this much.
It's a little bit easier to move your weight around and kind of get that timing, like even like
I still, like even on that throw, I'm still stepping like this. I'm still driving with that left leg, and I'm still doing a full throw with the follow through. You know, even if it's only a 30 or 40 meter shot, it helps me keep my timing, keep my weight going in the direction I want it to, and using my body, not just trying to muscle it. But there are people that can do a good little standstill weight transfer, and
I think that's more technical. I think it's more technical to stand there and time it than it is if you just take a few steps, because we are always taking steps when we throw in the T-pad. You do your little X step, and I think it's harder and takes more skill to time just the transfer.
I think a great thing you can work on for shorter shots or anything is just playing more catch. You know, that's my favorite like pastime to do. You know, if I can find someone to throw a catch frisbee with me, I'm all about it. Like if I could play for an hour or two a day and never get bored of it, and it's a good time to, you know, just work on smooth throws, but on still getting the timing. You know, even with a lightweight frisbee or something, you know, it's still important to use your body. You know, you're not just trying to muscle those disc rolls. They'll go like this.
Yeah.
You gotta have a smooth swing, have good spin on it, and just playing more catch can really be a good opportunity and a more fun way than just going out into a field and struggling, but to work on some of these mechanics. You know, it can be smooth, but still using your weight.
Yeah, catches also really helped me out with what's going on up here, right, with the release, because what's going on here with your wrist and with your grip and with the release as it comes through is also very important, and catch can help you with making this movement more fluid, right? Instead of like a static like motion, or not static, but instead of like a three-piece motion, like a one movement, right? And because a catch disc, it won't lie to you, right? It's not gonna lie to you. It's very understable. If it's a herky-jerky movement, you're gonna probably roll it over.
Flutter.
The smoother you can get that, we like to play with the Makani.
It's my favorite, yeah.
Yeah, if you guys get a Makani, play some catch with that. We had a question.
Yeah. How much it does affect on your mental game if you can't take the steps, your 5 steps?
It affects me definitely negatively. It depends on the course. If I'm in like a mountainous, wooded course where the terrain is just so extreme that it would be impossible, you know, then I can respect that. But if I'm on a wide open course with 150-meter holes where they're asking for a power shot on almost every tee pad, and then they only give me 2 meters to work with or 3 meters to work with, it really frustrates me. It feels unfair. It feels like I'm in handcuffs. Because guys like Eagle, he can throw 160, 170 meters on 2 meters. You know, he doesn't need. He's so explosive with his weight transfer that he doesn't need the long steps that I need to get that power. And yeah, it's very frustrating. I wish that, especially on the Pro Tour, National Tour, I wish there was a more standardized tee pad. I think it would be more fair for everyone. You know, I feel like being tall shouldn't be a disadvantage. But
Yeah.
It's something
very
that
frustrating.
I could improve on. You know, just because the hole is asking for a power shot doesn't mean I have to take my full power shot. But it's hard when people shoot 16 down every round, and I want to win. It's like I want to throw as hard as I can on this hole. I want to have my best chance at birdie. And yeah, I've let that get me in a dark mental place in rounds and had it affect a whole tournament, a whole round, and it's something that I could use to improve on. Nice question. Anybody else?
Do you guys have any questions about the concept of loading your hips? Weight from back to front. Very simple concept. It's actually not complicated at all, but it's very easy to stick with your habits and to just, when you get to that tee, to just step and just do your normal little throw or whatever. But if next time you go out to the field or you go to your course, just step over your body, right? You guys, I want you to watch the Simon Lizotte distance video on his channel. It's a very good video because he explains why, if this is my tee pad, that's the top left corner, almost every time Simon is coming here and he's stepping way over here, right? And we all know Simon is one of the best distance throwers around. It looks so effortless. And he talks about why his legs are so far apart, why left leg is here and right leg is way over here, right? Because he's loading his hips up and then driving his weight that direction, and everything here is just a product of that weight transfer. You had a question?
No, I was just gonna ask about the locking the hips.
Yeah.
How far I should step.
Everyone is different based on their leg size and everything. That's where practice comes in to handy. Filming yourself is something that we are all very fortunate that we can do in this time. You can just go and film yourself, and you can compare yourself to, there's really good videos, and how far you're 5'10".
I don't know, I'm 180 centimeters.
Oh yeah, sorry, so sorry. So sorry.
It's probably 5'10".
Yeah.
I think I'm like 191 or something.
Nice.
Not that much.
Yeah. But yeah, so everyone is different. But what's not different is that no one can open up their hips and throw with their weight. If you open up your hips, you can't use your weight anymore. You're sacrificing everything that you have. If you are even straight, you're not using your weight completely efficient, right? Because you're not locking your hips. You're able to move the weight from back to front, but there's no moment where it uncoils, right? You're kind of just like spinning it out there. But here, you can lock the hips. You can transfer the weight, and you don't have to move forward past this point until the disc is out of your hand. And then you follow through, or you hurt yourself. Very important. Are there any more questions about that?
Are your hips supposed to feel like they are tense when you are low?
No, there's no tension in the disc golf throw, right? You want to be relaxed, and it wants to be a fluid moment. There's definitely an aggressive push, but no, there's no tension in your body whatsoever. You are a whip, right? You're a whip, and that actually your question actually brings up another point. A lot of people that I see, they throw very upright. Okay, even the tallest players, Eagle is a very good example. Have you guys seen how coiled Eagle gets lately? His shoulders, I want you to pay attention to where his shoulders are. His shoulders are right here, right? And Eagle is like here. You guys, does that look familiar? Eagle is like here. He's way coiled over and just, it's all fluid. But he does not, there's not any, as you say, like it's not tense here. Because even though they're locked, when you go for that explosive moment, it's one moment, so it's not like a robotic kind of hitch. Are there any more questions? Yeah.
When you practice, do you like practice the mechanics slowly and then build it up to be faster?
Yeah.
Or like more fluid, or how do you like try to throw more accurate and?
It's a good question. It's a good question. So when you're practicing these fundamentals, it's definitely very good to go slow. A player like myself, a player like James, we kind of already have a bunch of these fundamentals going already to, you know, it's already kind of ingrained in us. So we don't necessarily have to go out there and still practice. Me more so than James. James is already kind of set, you know. I will still kind of like, you know, break down my throw and be like, okay, that time my weight was in front. For people that are very beginners, absolutely you go out there and you go as slow as possible, and you, as soon as you get the first basic fundamentals down of your weight transfer, your reach back and how it's close to your body, then you can kind of pick stuff up. But to be able to break the habits that you already have, if you've been playing for a few years and you're stepping like this and spinning the disc out there like that, it's going to take time. And what I recommend is splitting up the different fundamentals, right? Throwing like this and throwing powerful is definitely not the same thing as throwing accurate. And I'm not teaching you accuracy right now, because accuracy comes from practice, and it comes from knowing where your body is and knowing how you're throwing. So you split the fundamentals up. Say, okay, I've got my footwork down. Now what am I doing up here? Now I got this down. What am I doing with my grip? Now I've got my grip down. What am I doing with my follow through? And if you split those things up, it makes it a little bit easier.
What about when practice? Do you think that it's better to go with putters, slow speed disc, mid-range, or go straight away with drivers, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that the drivers will lie to you and they will correct your shot. The putters are more true and they tell you how your release was. A putter will tell you if you release it dead flat, a straight putter is just gonna fly straight, but a driver is gonna lie to you and it's gonna hyzer out, and you might be able to birdie that hole, but maybe you didn't get all the power you need. That's why, again, James is a very unique player.
I usually try to throw as slow of a disc as I can. I feel like I have the most control. Like the slower the disc, I feel like I have more command over the disc, and I kind of like to throw hard too. I don't know. With my longer run up, with how my body is, I feel like I get I'm more comfortable in my release. You know, if I'm getting my whole body into my throw, if I can stretch it out a little and get a firm swing. You know, I've my footwork so dialed and my throw so dialed that for me aiming isn't really difficult. You know, if I line my footwork up right and swing, it pretty much goes where I was expecting it to most of the time, which is a nice feeling. You know, I see people, I get to holes like this and some people are like nervous about it, and I'm like excited for it. I'm like, sweet, I can just like, yeah, rip it right down the line, and that all comes down to my footwork. It's not because I'm great at aiming. I mean, the visualization helps, but for me it's that my footwork is consistent and dialed in, and it lines my whole body up to throw the direction I want to throw. It's not me being at the last second like aiming it just right. It's just that it's very consistent. You know, it's very similar each time, and it's all coming from the legs.
Yeah, you mentioned
going through.
You mentioned that you like to throw hard. Mm-hmm. So everyone knows Ken Climo. Ken Climo said that he never threw 100%, but he never threw below 75% power. He likes to throw hard, right? And I think that's a very good point, because you know, throwing soft, you're thinking about a lot and you're trying to slow it down so much that it's not muscle memory anymore, right? You're really trying to aim the disc. I also like to throw very hard, right? If I'm going to throw an approach shot, I don't necessarily want to try and like really baby a putter. So my tendency is to take like my FD3, my Firebird type disc, and to throw it really hard. And I normally, each disc that I throw at the same, I throw it with the same power every time. And if you use the same power with every mold every time, that's how you start to develop, okay, I know my PD2 is gonna go 350, my DD3 is gonna go 410 feet, sorry. Very far, meters. Very far.
10 meters.
Yeah, right. But then when I throw my MD3, I know it's gonna go 80 meters, right? And then when I throw my putter as hard as I can, I know it's gonna go 50 meters. So knowing the disc selection and what power you're gonna throw it with every time is a good way to approach a competition.
One thing, when you like select power grip and when you go with fan grip, because you want to throw it hard every time, so are you gonna have power grip every single time?
I throw power grip every single time. I know a lot of other pros. James definitely throws power grip every single time. There are some that throw fan grip every single time. I know Garrett Gerthy throws fan grip every single time. Seppo has like a modified fan grip. Yeah, I think once you figure out a comfortable grip, I would say stick with that grip for all shots.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like to fan out on putters especially, but yeah, it's comfort level. I mean, backhand it should be a firm grip. Whether it's fan or power grip, it should be very firm, and yeah, just comfortable though is most important. I don't think there's a best grip or a worst grip or anything.
Yeah.
A quick question about the accuracy.
Yeah.
When you are aiming down the fairway, you come to the tee pad. If it's a wider fairway, you are choosing between, say, left, mid or right side of the fairway. Are you aiming towards the fairway with your upper body or with your legs?
Yes, that's a very good question. There's a player that I'd like to reference, Chris Dickerson. Have you guys seen him play? Chris also will associates all his disc golf, how good he is at disc golf, with his footwork. So if he's gonna throw an Anheuser to the right, he's gonna open up a little bit more, right? So I'm throwing this way, just like you asked. I'm trying to throw an Anheuser. Chris is gonna line up his footwork and he's gonna step more here because we're throwing that way. So our hips are still locked, but we're on the right side of the pad and our body's coming across this way. And same goes for a straight shot. If I'm throwing straight, my hips are still locked and I'm coming here. And then hyzer, I'm gonna step even further over there because I'm trying to go that way, right? My weight is driving that other direction. So definitely the footwork can help with accuracy, because still the footwork is what is driving the disc forward, and you can't control everything with your upper body.
Yeah, for me, it's mostly aim with my legs, but also a bit with my shoulders. Even my left elbow, like in my practice swing, say I'm aiming on the left side of this fairway, I want to maybe test the left side with an Anheuser. I'll pick one maybe 50 meters down that I want to get inside of, and so that's my aiming point. I never aim to hit, but I aim to beat on the inside of a tree or on the outside of a tree. And yeah, that's part of my practice run up too, is making sure I open all the way up to be perpendicular to that point I'm aiming to beat, or aiming to hyzer before, or Anheuser before, maybe around or inside of, you know. Yeah, so yeah, the footwork gets me there, and then how far I open up is a good reference point for me to use for aiming.
And aiming and everything, it comes with repetition, right? It comes with knowing angle of release here with my night strike. It's gonna flip up and it's gonna move a little bit to the right. And I know that. I'm not gonna aim all the way through that shot. I just know that the release is here and then my disc is gonna go straight here because I've thrown it 1,000 times, right? So aiming definitely comes with repetition, and it's not something that you can really just ingrain, right? You have to repeat to be able to figure out aiming point. Really good question.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we're almost done, but I want to talk about one more thing, the other side of disc golf. that James is that refuses to try. Right?
I try sometimes.
Yeah. When I left for tour in the U.S., I graduated college and I left and I was 975 rated, and I went to go and I signed up to play against Paul Macbeth, and I could only throw forehand. Right? You've seen a lot of players, a lot of young kids, they start out throwing forehand, right? Because forehand is really the easier shot in disc golf. The reason the reason that forehand is easier is because you can look at your target the whole time, right? In backhand, it's all about like repetition and really trust, right? Because how are you going to aim this gap right here when you're looking away from your target, right? So it's very comfortable to look at your target and just throw that way, right? And this is also just more common of a motion to throw versus this, right? When we were throwing spears, we weren't throwing them backhand at the woolly mammoths, right? We were throwing them here, and the shoulder is kind of, that's how our shoulder evolved, right? Is to throw the stuff. It's very natural to do this. There are some fundamentals of the forehand release that are very important, and we can all swing a tennis racket very hard, right? You guys have tennis? Yeah. A little bit, right? We can all swing a tennis racket very hard, and maybe the tennis player would be good at forehand, but there are some fundamentals that they would have to learn first before their release was actually clean, right? The most important thing, I think, for forehand distance is, again, what I like to call the load. So you guys ever seen Ricky Wysocki throw the forehand? The next time you watch Ricky, I want you to go and look at what he does right before he lines up his forehand. He takes the disc in his hand and he goes and he pushes it back in his hand. Okay? This is very important. Every single time he does this, he pushes it back in his hand. What that's doing is that's loading the disc back in your hand. You watch how I let my wrist go from there to there. It's not much movement, but it's very important when you're lining up your forehand. It just the same as when you throw backhand, the disc is on the inside of your hand, okay? The disc is in between your hand and your body, and that's what allows you to uncoil on it, okay? The same goes for the forehand. When I go to throw my forehand this way, I can't throw a forehand like this, okay? My hand needs to lead, okay? Because this is the end of your whip, this is the middle of your whip, this is the start of your whip, okay? I want you to go and look at Eagle McMahon, who I'm currently modeling my distance forehands off of. I want you to go look at the photos of him, look at the videos of him, and you notice how close his elbow is to his body and how far behind his arm is in relation to his elbow, okay? When he comes through, he is not perpendicular like this. It's like this, right? Because this is our whip. This is the end of our whip. Very important to load that disc back into your hand. You watch Greg Barsby as well. He's doing this right here. What he's doing is he's getting his grip. He's not too hard, and he's loosening up his wrist so that when he gets to his hit point, his last motion is back here, okay? The disc is way back here in his hand, and when he's coming through, this is in front. Elbow is leading, this is in front. If you were gonna slow it down, Eagle's shot right here, another very important thing, we're gonna take that same concept of the weight transfer, apply it to the forehand. There's one major difference with the forehand. It is very difficult to throw a forehand with your hips locked, okay? If your hips are locked, it's very difficult to come straight through on your body, and it's just different, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna step straight toward our target, and we're gonna point our toe toward our target. You can watch Eagle's throw. He does exactly this, okay? Maybe a little turned, but definitely not locked, definitely not open, okay? Straight toward our target. If I'm throwing right here, I'm gonna move my weight back. There's a couple different ways that you can do your dance. I know that Nate Sexton, very popular forehand thrower. Alex Russell, have you guys heard of Alex? Yep. Recently breakout player on the tour. This winter he developed the Nate Sexton hop. What that does is he goes here and he hops. What are we doing with the hop? Anybody?
Swing weight.
shifting weight. When you hop and you land with your right foot, all my weight is on my right foot, okay? So that's why Sexton hops, is to just remind himself that weight is back here, and then where is our weight going? It's going onto our front foot, okay? Is the disc first or the weight? Weight. Weight's got to be first, right? So our weight's first. So we're gonna go. I do a little X step. I actually drop my knee, and then when I step here, my weight is back. My weight is back. Even when my foot's on the ground, my weight is still back. As soon as it lands, I actually drive with my toe like this, and from way down here, and I'm driving right through here, okay? I'm driving, and I'm keeping that elbow as close to my body as possible. The closer that your elbow is here, the more you can create that whip, okay? If it's out here, your weight is here, and the whip is out there. Doesn't help you, okay? The closer that your whip is to your weight, the more that you're gonna be efficient with momentum and that weight transfer. Any questions about the load? Yeah?
No, actually, the forehand in general.
Yeah.
How can you lift up the release point? Because I just have the problem that my forehands are like 3 or 4 feet like high.
Yeah.
How can you make it go like still? It doesn't like go bottom up. It goes like flat.
Yeah.
It's like high enough.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's probably a few different reasons why your forehand is a little low. One of the major reasons is that you're just throwing it low, okay? That's just where you're throwing it, right? If I throw it low, it's gonna go low. But if I release it higher, so you might be releasing it too early in your swing, right? Because like I just said, I start from way low. Like my disc might even be right here, and then I'm driving here. If I release it here, maybe that's too early and it's gonna release low, and it's only a small difference, right? From here to here is a small difference, but it means the difference of maybe getting that nose up and getting the nose to flat versus that low release right there. But again, a situation like that is gonna be repetition. Maybe taking a look at yourself on the film, and maybe you realize that really you're just releasing here versus here. Very small difference. Any questions about the load? Where our weight is, why we're pointing that toe forward? You point that toe forward, that allows you to shift your weight and come here. If it's here, it's really hard. You get like, what is your name? Juusa. His question earlier about should you feel tension in your hips? If you do this and you're trying to forehand, you're gonna get to a point where you can't drive that weight forward anymore, and the disc still needs to move. So that's why we point that toe, because then we're able to come cleanly through. A little bit different than the backhand drive. Any questions about that? Yeah.
You were talking about your comparing your forehand to eagle.
Yeah.
Do you do the right leg first thing also?
Right foot is what I step with first. Yes.
Yes, but when he was shooting, I don't know the round, but he was throwing stand still, and his right leg was on front of his left leg.
No.
Yes. I'm not lying.
Was it like this maybe? Like
no, I think
something like that.
Yes, I think his point was that he felt that he was throwing too far during that week, and he was kind of handicapping himself. I think.
Okay.
He was telling something along those lines.
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. I know what you're talking about that. So what Eagle's doing with that is he's taking his weight out of it, right?
Just swinging.
He's throwing too far, right? Like I could do the. Let me grab it. Let me grab one of my discs. That's a good one.
I don't really want to throw for
Yeah, so like I could stand here and throw maybe forehand, maybe further than a lot of you without my weight really involved, because I've got all this figured out and I've got this last moment figured out, and that's why it's important to have this load and to have that elbow drive, because the weight is a little less important with the forehand. Carries a little bit more weight as far as distance, and the throw. So yeah, I could do this and I could throw it nice and far and flat and clean and everything, but if I'm really trying to throw far, then I want to get the weight involved, right? And I can throw it harder and I can get more on it, okay? So that is something that I would not pay any attention to because the Eagle is a very advanced level player and he understands that he might have had some distance issues and wanted to take his legs out of it. I don't recommend taking your legs out of it.
Nice question though.
About the forehand, I was wondering when you take the disc back.
Yeah.
Should you like keep it in the same level?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
Very good question, something I'd like to touch on for sure. So you guys have all seen this, right? I personally think that is what Avery and Paul are doing with that nonsense is just figuring out a routine so that their weight is in time, right? Why that makes your throw difficult is because you're changing the angle so many times with the release, right? So for beginners, what I like to teach is picture a table. It's right here, it maybe is a little bit below your hips, and I want you to take the disc. I'm just throwing flat shots. I'm just trying to figure out how to throw further. So don't worry about hyzer and hyzer. You take that disc, you keep it flat, you slide it back on that table, and then you just slide it right off the table, okay? That's gonna help you figure out and understand angle of release, keeping it flat. Then, when you wanna throw hyzer, you dip that table just a little bit on the angle of hyzer that you want, right? So now, I'm coming back right, if my table's like this, I'm coming right back on that table, and I'm not changing the angle very much. It takes a more advanced player to be able to change that angle last minute into the correct angle. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I definitely recommend if you're struggling with the forehand and you can't really figure out angles, visualize the table, right? Same way with backhand. When I'm throwing an Annie, I'll bring it back on Annie and bring it forward on Annie, because the least amount of movements that you have, the better chance that you're gonna get the angle of release that you want. Another very important thing with the forehand, how many of you guys have thrown a forehand and it's wobbling quite a bit? Right? A lot, yeah, even me all the time. So there's two different reasons why it wobbles. One, you are throwing it harder than it's spinning, similar to that putter right there, very wobbly shot. You throw a putter hard, you're not gonna get a ton of spin, and it's just not meant to fly like that. So the reason you're coming through like this, you're not spinning the disc with the load that we talked about. So you get that disc back in your hand, that's gonna help with the wobble. Another very important thing is the grip. So the only way that you propel the disc forward is with these bottom fingers. Your thumb is just a guide. Your thumb cannot force the disc forward. If you just had your thumb, you could not make the disc go forward, right? The last point of contact are these fingers. If you have too much pressure in the thumb, and the thumb is one of your last points of contact, picture this, slow motion, picture this with me. I'm going to throw, my fingers are off, my thumb is still on, it's gonna kick that disc up like that, right? That is a very common reason for the wobble in the forehand, is you are clamping onto that disc, you are putting too much pressure on your thumb, and when you release, your thumb is one of the last points of contact, it's gonna kick that rim up because you're clamping onto the rim, right? So you take that, you loosen up your thumb because your thumb is just a guide, and you try and visualize that the bottom fingers are your last point of contact.
This has felt really nice. Thank you all so much for all the questions. Maybe getting close to doubles time. You all ready? Or?